and go.
Oh, okay. Well, you did not need to record that, but okay. So this is being recorded. It's important to state it first. If you don't like the idea, don't want your voice or your pictures to be captured in this video, please leave. Otherwise, you'll be able to enjoy the next hour about or less, depending on participation of our guests from home. But welcome to all of you to Data Talks. For the ones of you who did not see the previous instances of this kind of series we are running, it's an experiment from a joint of two different projects that are the European Data Portal and the Support Center for Data Sharing. Both are initiatives by the European Commission. The first one, a more, let's say, more traditionally related to the space of open data and have been running for many years now, or almost 6. And the other one, the Support Center for Data Sharing, a new addition to the portfolio of services that the Commission runs for its citizens, trying to promote, in this case, data sharing in general. So not only from government to its citizens, but between companies, organizations, and also government in this case. The idea for the Data Talks and the reason we are here is that we believe that a lot of the momentum and the successes we owe to the people who actually make open data and data sharing possible in Europe. And today, particularly starting from the open data world, I thought I went back to my personal Rolodex and I said, well, let's invite 3 heroes of the Italian open data space. These are the 3 ladies you see in video, Francesca, Maria Claudia, and Giorgia. Would you like to introduce yourselves? And then perhaps we will talk about, because you're heroes, we'll talk about your origin stories as well. What about Giorgia? Let's start from you.
Yeah, hi, good morning to everybody. How to present myself. I'm a consultant currently of the Italian Digital Agency, and I work in the context of open data since many years, more or less 9, even probably more, 9 years. And well, my career is not only in the public sector, but I also used to work in the university and research community sector because I've been for some time research assistant at different universities, both in Bologna, in Italy, and in Rome. And then I moved to this public sector environment and starting there to work with the open data. So, and now I'm working specifically on developing ontologies and try to foster the linked open data paradigm in the public sector.
Thank you, Giorgia. Francesca?
Hi, everyone. Actually, I'm a researcher, but I'm not an academic. I don't want to define myself as an academic. So I don't have a linear path. So I started, in the teen years of the 2000s to investigate on how some institutions were releasing data on development projects. So I'm a social scientist with a PhD in sociology, and I was really interested since the beginning at the effects of technology in the society and the power dynamics behind it, actually. So as a sociologist. So my first contact with open data was during my doctoral studies, where I was studying the strategy of the World Bank and the Development Gateway Portal, which was the first primary entry point to knowledge and data on projects funded by the World Bank. And it was a very important turning point, I think, in the open data world. We are talking about 2003. And then, of course, I kept this passion for the knowledge sharing, and I started to be part of this community after being out for some years of the academic community. And due to my close encounters with hackers, I started to study how data are released, published, and of course, collecting evidence on the reuse of open data.
Thank you, Francesca. So we touched on the technologist, Giorgia, this social researcher, but not an academic. And then we go to Maria Claudia. What about you?
Hi, everybody. I hope you hear me well. Yeah, my name is Maria Claudia Bodino. I'm currently working for the Italian digital transformation team. But basically, I worked for a lot of years in the private sector before. I graduated in computer science from the Polytechnic of Turin. And then I started my, let's say, my career working for some ICT company like Motorola and Avira. And then I decided to come back to Italy and to switch between, let's say, from the private sector to the public one. And I had this opportunity to join the digital transformation team. I'm really interested about these topics. Now we are trying to, let's say, to face in Italy, and basically we are trying to define a digital strategy for the country. We work together with Giorgia on different projects about open data, but not just about open data. We are also involved in a lot of activities with the different ministry and the different department in order to improve the interoperability between the different, let's say, base registry we have in Italy. And also I'm currently enrolled in a Master of Science in Public Sector Innovation, because I love to integrate my knowledge that is pretty technical with something more from the policy and let's say social science aspect. Yeah, basically that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we said, as every hero has an origin story, I'm curious to know what was your specifically, perhaps your first contact with open data and how it developed from there. And for some of you is many years back in the past, like in my case. So that also makes me curious, and possibly that is why we know each other for such a long time. So Spider-Man was bit by the spider, right? So what bit you? Maria Claudia, shall we start from you?
Oh,
oh, you're on mute now.
So you hear me?
Yes.
Basically, I spent some years living outside Italy, in Germany, and sometimes in US. And when I decided to came back, I was really impressed by the fact that Italy is not so bad as you usually think when you are in Italy. And so I decided to leave the company in which I was working for, that was a very good one. And they say, oh, maybe I can use a little bit of my knowledge in improving my country. And at that moment, there was this very good opportunity for the digital team with Diego Piacentini, you know, the vice senior manager from Amazon. And I decided to apply. But before that, I spent some, basically 1 year and a half working for an NGO that was trying to foster transparency and to face corruption in Italy. And also one project in which we were involved that I'm really proud was the, let's say, the petition in order to ask the introduction of the Freedom of Information Act in Italy. So this was a really good goal, even if today is not used as it is used in other countries. But basically this was a really good input for me to start discover something more about open data. And then a day I saw like the conference, the International Open Data Conference in Madrid, and I decided to buy basically a ticket, and I went there. And this was the place where I meet Maurizio, I meet you and Francesca. And probably this was the good input that I found, and then I decided to go deeply on this topic.
So that is the first time the Avengers assembled somewhere by chance. Giorgia, what about you? What beat you?
Well, as I said before, I started looking at the open data. Well, to be honest, I didn't touch open data at that time, but when I was working at the University of Rome, I was working in a project of cybersecurity project. Okay, so I'm also a woman in security, at least in my past. And one of the main concepts that were there developed was that sharing knowledge with many actors about possible cyber attacks can help to prevent them, or at least to act in advance in order to mitigate their damage. And that was the starting point from my career, let me say, with data. And the idea that sharing knowledge, it's powerful because it allows us to, put together many knowledge around the world to fight something. In that case, it was to fight, obviously, cyber attacks. Then when I moved to the public sector, to the Italian Digital Agency, that was called in a different way at that time. It was 2011, if I remember correctly. Then one of the first tasks they assigned me was to investigate, to manage a project to create open data for a specific base register of the Italian public sector, which is the registry of Italian public organization. We call it IPA, Indice Pubblica Amministrazione. They are all the list of the public administrations registered in Italy. And they said, okay, so we want to do the best open data we can. So we want to investigate the 5 stars because we don't want, 3 stars or even less. And so I started by myself studying a lot. I read a lot of things, scientific papers, because that was my mood, because I was coming from the university. So the first thing that you do is to study scientific papers. And then I studied a lot also in blog posts coming from other governments, like US and UK governments, because at that time they were quite advanced, let me say, in open data, and they were doing a very nice thing to probably replicate also in other contexts, like the Italian one. And then I studied a lot from our communities. This is my outing, let me say, because I studied a lot, probably they don't know, reading posts from a community that was developed in Italy, which was because now, probably it still exists, but I'm not sure their status that is spaghetti open data. I read a lot of their posts. I never registered to that community, and there are many lists, but I read a lot of their point of view, was because there were the point of views of both the civil servants and the society, the civic actors, and that allowed me to understand the issues to be faced when opening data, and then my knowledge grew. Then I participated in some the G8, there was a G8 in London, if I remember correctly, where there was a specific focus on the open data, and that was the first time of G8 discussing about like an open data charter to be implemented in the different states. And I participated in a technical working group of that, and then I continued this work till now, that now I moved more on the standardization of the semantic interoperability ontologies.
So it's already
this
two
is
different...
more or less my origin and till now.
Well, it feels like a lot already. So and it's already two very different stories. So one, Maria Claudia, coming from industry, getting enlightened perhaps at some point, wanted to do more for society through data. Giorgia coming from the academic world, but also complementing what you learned there with the early communities and Spaghetti Open Data, of course, that I followed at the time, but I was already abroad, I believe, coming together and learning in parallel from the academic perspective of what open data meant at the time and the experience of the practitioners, both in activism and in government. So these two words that sometimes do not overlap, sometimes are very actually strong together. And and Francesca, you name already perhaps a little of your component. It started with the social research and your interest in the power dynamics, you call them. Is that correct?
Yes, I said power dynamics. I mean, there is power dynamics behind open data. So this is very interesting, and I will talk slightly about it later. But I just want to say that my first encounter with this global open data community was in 2011, not with open data as a topic actually, but with people that were doing something for opening up data. And it was, I was living abroad because I was in Germany, and it was summer, I was in Spain on holiday, and then came this invitation from a dear friend of mine. She's in the Fab Lab world, she's a maker. And she was inviting me to come to the Open Knowledge Festival in Helsinki in 2011. So I was a bit skeptical, but just because I was on holiday. But then in like 20 minutes, it was, okay, I'm coming. I have found a flight. I'm going to Helsinki through Copenhagen. And then I was ready to join this event, which was, I mean, one of the best events after a lot of academic conferences I was attending in those years. And when I was there, I was tweeting a lot, and I was going to all the workshops and events. And during this Hans Rosling lecture, who was the main speaker, I mean, the keynote speaker, yes, someone from the Italian Open Data group present at the conference was just sending me a message saying, hi, you are one of the few Italians here, so why we don't meet? And so I met these civic hackers coming from that community that Giorgia was mentioning before, Spaghetti Open Data. Since I was abroad, I was living abroad, I was not following actually this activity in Italy. I was more informed about the global movement, the global community in those years. So that was the first time, I mean, the very first time. Then after some months, I was offered this opportunity, this job in Trento, and I went back to Italy, working closely with the local government for the launch of this regional open data catalog. And after 1 year, I was more focusing on citizen engagement, and you know, in those years, yes, there was also this hype. Yes, not on the 5 stars of Tim Berners-Lee, but the 5 stars of Tim Davis. Looking at the importance of how to engage citizens in the, of course, how to convince them to use data for civic purposes. And so I was focusing on that in this initiative, this local government initiative.
Can I interrupt you there, Francesca? There's something that is quite strong in what all of you are saying, or at least a pattern that comes out, how strongly related people working in open data sometimes seem to be around shared motivation and shared points in time and location sometimes. So the Open Knowledge Festival in Helsinki and the one the year after, 2 years after in Berlin are in the history of a lot of us. The IODC in Madrid, same. And the networks this is not just a story of the Italian component of it. It's very typical of, at least of most of the people I know working in open data today, that they reinforce their personal motivation with these kind of networks that run deep across countries and sectors and jobs and different points in time. And that, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to start moving towards the situation in Italy. So because of course you contribute to progress of this world, and let's not call it open data only at this point, perhaps we call it data sharing in general, and with a focus on government perhaps in the past and now extending. What would you say are, from an Italian perspective, the biggest challenge you've been through or you helped overcoming, or what are the ones that are coming that you will still need to do a lot of work for? I see Giorgia looking at the sky, asking for help for the heavens. Would you like to go first, Francesca?
Me? Francesca, okay, sorry.
So are you asking about open data in Italy and the situation in Italy? Or my experience in open data in Italy related to my work?
Let's make it useful for our audience. So let's say one challenge that you had in the past that you solved or helped solving, and how, and perhaps one that is in front of you that you still need to deal with. And the same question applies to the
my personal experience, and I was driving my work actually since 2013, when I was back in Italy and working in open data, was to try to collect evidence on the reuse of open data. So doing it systematically, I started this project called Open Data 200 with Fondazione Bruno Kessler and the Governance Lab. We tried to map the enterprises that are reusing open data for commercial purposes. I didn't find any study or data on the reuse of data that were consistent. So my questions and my point was, why don't we do that? Because we need to talk about the benefits of open data, but we need also to talk about the costs. And if we want to do this analysis, we need more evidence on the reuse, of course. And this is a circle. So a virtuous circle sometimes, and a vicious circle on the other hand.
Would you say it is still a challenge today? Or
It is, and my project is that project is ended now, but now I'm involved in other projects that are using the methodology. We are trying to evolve it, and you know better than me because of your work how hard is it. So, but we are still on the way. I mean, it's we have a lot of steps in front of us to do and to make, and but it's not just the challenge. I think when I was talking about power dynamics, I was talking about processes. I was talking about open data not treated as a topic in itself, a policy, an autonomous policy. It's part of a process. So it's something that has to become a part of, not a philosophy, but it has to be a normal, a part of a normal path of an organization, of a public sector organization, of course.
So it is not yet so. We are still fighting that battle, you say?
No, it's not yet so. And of course, the administrative configuration, I don't know how to say, the multi-level governance, I mean, in Italy, is very complex. And this is part of the problem. So as a former political social scientist, in theory, actually, we study a lot of these mechanisms in theory. Then in practice is really a Daedalus. I mean, it's a labyrinth. It's very, very connected to to personal interests and not public interest. As you know, now we are shifting to public interest technology is the new mantra.
Public interest technology, wow.
So I saw a lot of private interest in the public sector and a lot of, public interest also in the private sector. And this is something that has to be balanced in these days.
Okay, and because you named government, the natural thing to do then is going to Maria Claudia. So pick one challenge from your past in open data, and perhaps develop the point Francesca made. You are closer to government today? Do you see what she's describing? Are you fighting the good fight, and are you winning?
Yeah, let's say that I'm facing this issue probably every day in my job. And I think that Italy is pretty far away from a data-driven public sector, not by now. But at the same time, we have in the future some very good opportunity. For example, the Open Data Directive, which I'm working on, and also the 3-year plan for the, let's say, public sector information with Giorgia. Also, we are working on this together. But at the same time, speaking from a geographical point of view, you can see in Italy different level of, let's say, expertise about open data. If you look to the regional level, you have good experiences and also good projects. But if you look more locally to the municipality level, to the province level, unfortunately, there are a lot of small initiatives that are not aligned with the national data strategy. So the risk is that these initiatives are very often, they are very good, but they are not well known, and so they are not reused. That basically is the main principle behind open data. At the same time, if you want to have a look more at the highest level, for example, look into the ministry and to the different central administration, it's pretty clear that it's not so easy a data collaboration, let's say. We have, now we are trying to, from some months, we are working on a task force on data based on open data, but not just open data, no? We are trying to give some, to the policymakers, some good data in order to deliver good policy. And this is pretty challenging. Probably there is a lack of, I think, of skills, of data skill. And in my opinion, this is something in which we have to invest a lot in the future, basically. Because probably sometimes it's not because the public administration don't want to do or to publish data, but they don't know how to do it probably, or they don't know the power and the potential for the country of this action. And also sometimes, it's not good to say, but it's like that, it's the reality, they don't want to share the data because data is power, and probably it's not so easy. Even if you are talking about open data, they prefer to deliver the data in PDF or in dashboard, but not the raw data. And let's see, I think we have a lot of activity to do. So this is a good point.
And you name the skills. Is it a matter of having more data scientists in civil service, or even just people who understand data to some degree, what I would personally call literacy? Yeah,
I would say that it's good. Also, from my experience in these past years, I work on different projects. But if you are not together with a domain expert, you can be the best team of data scientists in the world, but if you're not working together with some domain expert, probably your analysis will not be very useful. So I think it's very important to put different skills together, but at least everybody has to have a minimum level of skill about data culture. And also one of our suggestions is to introduce in the public administration a data team, where you have a data analyst and data scientists together. And I hope young people, because usually these are more powerful and energized than the other one. And this is another problem from let's say the public servant in Italy. they are not so young, we know. So this means that sometimes they are not so flexible in order to acquire new knowledge. And this can be sometimes a barrier.
Okay, so it's a matter of attitude. I would not call it age, but perhaps the attitude that comes with age sometimes, unfortunately, being a bit more rigid in the kind of knowledge you have already, feeling a bit entitled, perhaps coming from that kind of experience, rather than still available to learn and understand that there are new things around you.
They also maybe sometimes are scared because they didn't have the opportunities to touch with their hands that data collaboratives is good for everybody. And at the end, it's good to share knowledge and not to keep everything for yourself in silos. But, we are lucky because we have this experience. Maybe some people didn't experience this. I don't know.
Thank you, Claudia. And Giorgia, you've been fighting this fight more from the technology side, right? So what challenges, give me one challenge you've been involved in that perhaps is still on your plate and you need to fight hard for?
Well, I simply can say, I can say this. My first work in this, my first document, official document coming from, let me say, government agency was entitled Semantic Interoperability through Linked Open Data. Okay, this is the challenge, and I still fight for it because what we claimed in that document, and by the way, we were a group of many different administrations. I liked a lot that experience because I learned a lot from local public administration, central public administration involved in that group. We all agreed at that time that paradigm could be really the chance to foster and implement real interoperability, in that case semantic interoperability, and finally have these databases of the public administration interchanging data with each other. Okay, I still fight a lot for that. Because I am the girl in the public sector that does complicated things, for example, okay? Because when you have to come and say, look, we need to create together a common data model, for example, because if you want to take all the data coming from all the different public administrations, and Francesca and Maria Claudia explained the complexity that we have in our country, if everybody also structure the data as they wish, okay, it's very difficult for a data scientist, for example, to take all this data and do an analysis of a phenomenon at the national scale. Yeah. You should start to reason about having common standards and using common standards, common interoperability profiles, let me say, so that actually when we exchange data, we can understand and preserve the meaning of the data in this exchange. This is something that I still need to try to find a way to explain people the added value.
Why do you think we still need to fight this? What is it that this does not? Why doesn't the message get through? What is it that we're missing there?
I think there are many reasons why people are not doing that. First of all, I think there is a reason of the fact that we need to deal with very old systems, okay? From a technological point of view.
Technology system.
In the public administration sector, you have public administration using systems that are old, and probably they are coming from different amendments they added to the system over the time, so stratification of software developments over the time, and this complicates things because they say, okay, we have this system, we have this data, I cannot change everything, and then they say, if something works, why should I change it? Okay, and so this is the first, obviously, impact. The other impact is that, I agree with Maria Claudia, we miss skills and we miss the culture of thinking to the system with data in the center. Okay, they construct system, and then they say, okay, now I release some data. No, we need to start from the data and reason about the data, and then construct all the systems surrounding that. And this is something that requires a change in culture. I believe that we are, as Maria Claudia said, we are still far away from that, at least in our country. But looking at other countries' experience, I'm not sure that there is a so nice place out there. I saw with the COVID the data sets, for example. I read just an article coming from the US saying that all the data are closed within PDF and dashboards, as it is in Italy. We must say that, okay. But yeah, this is the main challenge that I'm facing, and these are, so they are limitation from a technical point of view, but basically also the limitation comes from what Francesca was saying before. There is a process behind it. Yeah. And if you want to change completely the paradigm, you need to change the process. That should be aligned with the new world, okay? And this is something very difficult to obtain. Yeah. It requires years and years.
And I like the way you framed it, because, and coming from a technologist like you, because we sometimes we techies tend to see everything like, I mean, we just need a system or deliver a new piece of software, piece of hardware, and so on. This is not really the case. I mean, we are the first to understand this is a matter of process. The systems are the service of those processes.
Absolutely.
Seeing data as an asset, not as a file on a hard disk of someone. Yeah. And yeah, we are all still fighting this fight. To close the first part of this session, in which you are the center of let's say, on the plate that we offer our audience, I wanted to ask you one last round related to data sharing in general, not just open. If you had the opportunity to, I'm saying this also for the audience at home, to check the latest data strategy from the European Commission, they've opened the space a lot, talking about data sharing in general beyond open, the concept of data spaces and so on. And this is when data may not necessarily be available to be open, whether it is confidential or includes data about individuals and so on. Do you think this is the way to go? Do you think there is space and opportunities for data sharing in general, or are you skeptic? What do you think about this? Starting from Maria Claudia, perhaps.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity to foster public-private partnership, PPP, because it's, as the European data strategy mentioned, but it's really important, and we have the evidence today. Think about just the COVID-19 pandemic, and think about the mobility data. Everybody's asking for the mobility data to understand better how people is going around, and these data are not, yeah, they are not public, but they are even not from the state. So it's important to integrate this knowledge together. And also, for example, we need the data from the utilities, for example. We need data in order to understand the energy consumption of a country in this period, to understand where people is moving and from the point from A to B. And so in my opinion, this is pretty interesting. I don't know which are the best tool from a policy point of view in order to let's say, to improve this sharing of data, because today is not so easy. For example, I had some experience. They are more related to the local context. But in some cities in Italy, you have the data, for example, for the transportation layer that are from a public company, but in somehow it's a private company. So the city hall is not allowed to have and to access to this data. So this is pretty important to try to create the framework around and to avoid every misunderstanding, sure.
Yeah, this is the classic problem of data being imprisoned, let's say, in the hands of suppliers to government.
Because maybe you have some agreement that they were signed some years ago, and there was needs, let's say, the legal interoperability was not so clear, and so you are not allowed to ask them the data of your city. So this is unbelievable, no? But it's like that.
Yeah, thank you. although this perhaps will be solved by the upcoming Open Data and Public Sector Directive with the requirement, hopefully, fingers crossed. We will talk about this next summer, okay?
Yes.
After we see it. Giorgia, what about interoperability between private and public sector? If it is a challenge in public, will it be a challenge also in data sharing in general?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, I think it is actually a challenge of that, but I think it's in 2020 mandatory. So we need, once again, from my experience, I start working with all these kind of things in the context of the Italian interoperability framework that was called at that time, now is probably is dead, which is called the SPC. It's an acronym for Sistema Pubblico di Connettività, which was our interoperability framework. And basically was based only for public administrations, you know. You share the data only for public administrations. And there was like a complex interoperability model where you had the specific protocols to implement and specific elements to deploy in the public sector, okay? And some public administration did that. But then they said to us, okay, but then when I come to, for example, interact with the private sector for a payment, for example, okay, how can I impose a private sector to use my protocol that I have to use only within the public sector? Okay, so now in Italy we have this, we changed slightly this model because we are going to a different interoperability model which is more open, with based, let me say, on APIs and very general term of APIs, and so probably there is also this availability to open to the private sector. I believe it is absolutely necessary to share data, and I believe it is very necessary. I tell you, even today, because I read this morning something that I didn't like in my country, there is still confusion between open data, shared data, and public data. We need to clarify the things from my point of view, and we need to foster all of them. Okay, because we need to share data, even personal data, between the public administrations. I have many stories from the public sector of public administration struggling in obtaining data from another public administration, or they have to pay. A public administration have to pay to have a data from another one because they have to do an institutional task. It's amazing, you know, but it happens. So we really need to foster all these important principles.
And I like the point you made about perhaps helping interoperability by using open standards. Absolutely. Rather than impose from one side arbitrarily. I mean, sounds obvious perhaps to us because we've been doing this for so long, but perhaps for others it's not. And even a strong government today perhaps does not have the strength, the soft power to impose a standard. So the only way perhaps to work with private is to actually work together collaboratively. Yeah. And Francesca, last but not least, so from the researcher point of view and the dynamics of it, what do you see for data sharing coming beyond open data?
Yes, I was thinking of the European data strategy a lot since it was released and in January, I think, or in February. And I was reading it in this geopolitical, using this geopolitical key because, of course, Europe wants to be a player, actually, a political player with more political weight in the global, of course, world of big techs. And this is, of course, that document it's very relevant for this reason. So in my point of view. Then, of course, the question about the data collaboratives, which has been discussed over the years, and now it's let's say it's been institutionalized. This is another important point. So the problem is the implementation. So how to really realize this, how to say, data philanthropy, I don't know, this release of private data for public interest. So this is very problematic. This will be hard, difficult. I can't talk about the Open Data Directive because I'm working on the high value data sets. So I'm in the team, so I can't say more. But this is part, of course, of the mindset who is researching these new data spaces, and I'm quite concerned but aware, and this, I can say optimist. I'm optimistic, but with, I mean, moderation. Yes, with moderation.
That's a nice word that describes Italians in general. Optimist with moderation.
And I want to say more that this government-to-government, I mean, communication, non-communication, sorry, mentioned by Giorgia, it doesn't happen according to my study and analysis, recent analysis. It doesn't happen just in Italy. It's really very
common, yeah.
Common, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that many of the
all around Europe.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure many of the patterns you described today happen across Europe. Federal states, I understand, have even a further layer of complication because different states or regions in the same country may not have seamless way of transfer data from one to the other. So a lot of us are still fighting that battle. It's not just Italy. So that's all from my side for now, and thank you again for being with us. I would save some time for questions from the audience, if it is specific to our three guests today. And I see in chat there is one for us at the European Data Portal in particular, that if you don't mind, Magnus, I will keep towards the end, after questions for Francesca, Maria Claudia, and Chiara. So if you have questions for our guests, think about it. If you are shy, write them down in chat. Or otherwise,
Luigi has raised his hand with a question.
Oh, hey, Luigi. Welcome. Go on.
Hi again. I have quite an obvious question for the three women in this panel. Since you talked a lot about data is power, the data is power, about silos, about this administrative culture of keeping the data and using them as a tool for their career, or to use as a tool of power. And you, as women, do you think that having more women in key roles in public administrations or elsewhere will help to be more collaborative, to overcome, to try to do something to improve this widespread culture in government, at least in Italy? This is something that I can see.
Thanks, Luigi. I have a feeling Francesca has an opinion on this.
Regarding Italy, yes, sure. We have a lot of talented women and busy with their jobs, and of course trying to emerge, and they need more opportunities. But I have to say also that we need the right woman. It's not just a matter of quote rosa. Sorry, I don't know how to say in English.
Positive discrimination for women.
Positive discrimination, sorry. But we need to give, let's say, value to the right and talented women that are now not leaders and can be leaders. Sorry for it. It's banal, but it's very yes.
It's not banal.
Crucial. It's crucial.
Yeah. Giorgia, Maria Claudia, do you want to add anything on this? And then we have another question from the chat.
Well, to be honest, I know many women in the public sector, and they are very silent behind the scenes, you know. They don't even participate in public events. Typically you see men, you know. And this is something that is happening very often, even recently. And I think that, and they fight a lot, okay, because I know some of them fighting a lot to remove some culture, very old culture, okay, and jealousies and so on. And I think that if they start having higher level in the hierarchy positions, probably some of the things may change, because women has some kind of approach sometimes that can help. But as Francesca said, from my point of view, there should be the skills. Okay, it's not only a matter of gender. There should be you know, the right women with skills, capable of understanding the problems and facing even difficult problems and complex problems. And that's the main point, okay? It happens also with men, because I know many civil servants, men civil servants that are absolutely amazing, and they did many things and innovated a lot of pieces of public administrations. But yeah, probably some, you know, higher level position for women. Why not? Okay, it's the time. Let me say.
So Luigi starts planning for retirement, so we could make room. No, okay. Maria Claudia, do you want to add anything, or we go for the next question?
I think it's not a matter of gender, but most of mindset and also skills. So you can also put a very powerful and a very good woman at the top, but if you around don't have a good ecosystem, the effects are basically zero. So you need to build an ecosystem around. And also, in my experience from when I was a student at the Polytechnic, I'm used to stay in let's say team where men are more than women. I didn't face many problems by now. It depends. I think it's not something not generic, you can say. But if something doesn't work like now, maybe it's good to change something, and we can start from this variable.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Thanks, Maria Claudia. I see a question from Esther Huyer that works in our team on the support center for data share side. She leads the project for us. She asks, probably this is for Francesca, it seems we still face similar challenges than many years ago. As an example, around how to measure the impact of open data. Are we making progress, and could we be faster, maybe collaborating more? What do you think, Francesca, as a researcher?
Yes, actually, I think that we have to collaborate more, because we need to share all the data we have collected, because sometimes at national level, I was studying all the literature actually on the impact and all the all papers and of course data that are not available, I have to say. So we should do a task force on that. So that would be really interesting. But also I think that we have to advance this kind of approach, and we need more a computational approach. Of course, we need also to use private data to do that. And this is not possible. I was trying to use actually other sources, not just interviews or surveys or this, of course, quantitative information comes also from, for example, LinkedIn data, other kind of data that are not public. So this is important. That could be like a challenge and a new effort for who is researching open data impact.
And you talk about computational. What are you referring to? Because I have an idea, but I don't know if.
Yeah, I was just referring to the fact that we need to have analysts, data analysts that are not just working with social scientists, and of course able to manage big I don't want to use the word big data, but of course try to analyze big amounts of data coming from, I was citing the example of LinkedIn, for example, but they are closed, so...
So in a way, going beyond the limitations that are, let's say, in running a survey, or because the sample will be too small.
This is not enough. Is not enough. This is important for advancing the debate on the measurement.
Yeah, but that's a bit of a contradiction in terms. And again, we cannot talk too much about this because of timing, but open data being open data, we cannot ask people to register to download it. We cannot ask people to get a license nominally. So it's one of our historical issues, right, in this space. Perhaps we need to change something there, or in a way.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Trade-off, right? So
yes, in my
users.
Yeah, in my recent project, I was interviewing an entrepreneur, and it was saying exactly what you are saying right now. Why don't you ask logs to data providers? Why these logs are not public about who is downloading or reusing data? And this is an issue that maybe can be submitted to the ministry, maybe to the I don't know.
That would start up to open a can of worms, because I'm sure that the one of us who are still wear the activist hat on and may simply be contrary to adding any element of friction to reuse, like registration may be for some. So it's a difficult topic, perhaps for another time. So before saying goodbye, I invite Magnus, who put two very good questions for the ADP side of the team, to write us on the support forum that we have on the website. We can give you a good idea of what the answer is to those 2 points that you make. And for our three guests, thanks so much for being with us. I look forward to meet you again in other circumstances, perhaps. Keep up with the good work and keep being our models for pushing across all directions possible data sharing and open data in Italy. Thank you again for your work, and thank you for everybody who has been following our session today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Bye bye.
Grazie. Bye bye.
Ciao a tutti.
Ciao.
Ciao ciao.